Woo! Meal prep time!
Hello, IDS here with another ranking video. This time, the 2008 Matoran. This will close out sort of the Matoran Agori style builds, since I've already done the Agori, and I did the stars. So, these guys are the originators. The 2008 Matoran, it was a bit of a departure in many ways for a lot of the small sets compared to previous waves. Obviously glaringly obvious. It's a brand new system of parts. I think this is probably the largest update to a library of parts that we got for a build since 2006. Maybe even percentage-wise for these builds, maybe since 2004. Your standard Matoran, every single piece is new, except for the feet. At least for the Matoran. If you look at a set like Kirilp, bar the weapons, feet and weapons, but if you look at a set like Kirilp, every single piece on that set was new, except the weapons, because even the hand pieces were updated in 2008. So, while we were in canister clone every wave era, these were a brand new system of parts, which I think is maybe understated, maybe it's not, I don't know. However, it's a little bit controversial. Mainly because I would say that the 2008 Matoran somewhat established the precursor to CCBS, where you almost eliminate Technic from the system completely, and you just snap together parts. I mean, these were the simplest builds since, I would say, the Tuhunga, which were McDonald's promos. There's not a single pin or free axle in any of these sets. Of course, the weapons connect via axles, the masks connect via axles, but everything else is click, click, click. And it makes for an incredibly simple build, which is not great. Really feels like the truest departure from the Technic system. I know Bionicle technically stepped away from the Technic umbrella back in 2003, but maybe it was 2002 officially. But regardless, again, this is almost like the step away where everything is ball joint based, which then CCBS would continue to push in that direction. Another thing with these small sets is typically small sets tend to use, to this point, a lot of reused parts. Now, the one example I would think that doesn't really speak to that is the... No, maybe I'm wrong in saying that. That's not true, actually. Again, I was thinking like the 2006 Matoran, the 2007 Matoran, maybe at this point, and even the Rahaga, they're almost like custom little mocks. But actually, the 2004 Matoran, the 2003 Matoran, for example, don't really fit that mold. And again, discounting Tuhunga mainly because they aren't actually a full official LEGO release. They are officially LEGO pieces, but they came through McDonald's. And then the final major departure is the Kanohi. Now, one thing I will say is small sets have always, post the Turaga, which again is the first establishing wave of small sets, all had reused masks. The Borok Var, again, you're just using Borok shields. The 2003 Matoran, recolors of existing Kanohi, or existing Kanohi. 2004, recolors of existing Kanohi. 2005, the Rahaga, recolored Rakshi heads. 2006, not even recolors, just straight up using the Metru masks again. 2007, recolored Kanohi, except for Sada. So this is the first wave where Matoran actually got new molds. Which, very cool. Always great to get new Kanohi. However, and this is a problem I have with the Shadow Matoran in particular, I like my Kanohi usable by many, many characters. Evil characters, good characters, bad characters. Arkmao can be evil and have the same mask as Nokama. Jala can be more level-headed and kind of stoic compared to Ta, who's got like hairpin trigger and aggressive, but they wear the same mask. I like masks to be quite... I'm trying to think of a good word for versatile. And unfortunately, by making explicitly evil, creature-ish type masks, you limit their uses. Like the Matoran mask, while they are, of course, supposed to be almost like miniaturized versions of the Phantoka masks, they do stand apart. Like Solek's mask, you can see the shared design details with the adaptive Akaku Nuva, but it's different enough that you can use it for a different purpose. Meanwhile, the Shadow Matoran masks are really just like a noble version of the Jutlin, for example, in Radiac's case. And I already am not the biggest fan of having monstrous Kanohi, but it makes sense for the Makuta. But now we have 3 masks that are kind of just worse, or just alternate versions of those masks. I don't need 2 spiky teethed red and black masks. And in fact, we got 4 that year. We have 3 Jutlins and the Mask of Vulture that Voltraz has. All 4 of those masks kind of sit in the same niche of evil red mask with teeth. It's just a bit excessive, and again, it would have been great to get more molds that were more applicable across the board. And if you're a stickler for canon, even tying them to the Toa and Makuta masks also limits their availability. Again, we have 6 technically new molds here. These could have been brand new Kanohi that then we can use on our own Toa characters, or our own whichever new Matoran, anything like that. But within the story, 3 of them are immoral masks that are locked to evil characters because a normal Tora Matoran wouldn't use them, and they are so visually similar that even twisting them in your head or just using your head canon requires a bit of a stretch because they are so evil coded. And with the Av Matoran specifically, it's like, oh great, there's this brand new mask that looks nothing like an Akaku, but it is an Akaku. Great, okay. Oh great, a brand new mask that I can use on Matoran and Torover. Oh, it's just a Miru that looks nothing like a Miru, and it's a noble Miru. So I can make a Turaga with a Miru versus getting something new. And the only one that really escapes that curse is Photok. Mainly because Photok's mask really does look like a Kakama. I didn't like Greg canonizing these as noble masks of the mana masks, mainly because they are designed to look like the adaptive Nuva versions, which they are the only characters in existence that have those masks. So why would we tie these to them? Again, Photok seems like a happy accident that Photok's mask, while resembling the Kakama Nuva, also resembles a Kakama. That is just perfecto. It looks great. Fantastic. It's the only one. And then obviously the Shadow Matoran, they are clearly noble masks of those Kanohi. But Tanma and Solek having a Miru and a Kaku, I really don't like it. Again, I know there's not really continuity between masks in Bionicle, except if it's a How or an Evoki. But these are masks that have continuity. They just have continuity with versions of these masks that only the Nuva can have. So yeah, nerd rage. Nerd. It's like, whatever. They're clearly designed to buddy up and match their Toa or Makuta sets. But I don't think that was a deal breaker. I think a kid matching up the white Matoran with the white Toa, even if the masks look different, wouldn't have been a stretch. The classic Matoran were always depicted in their posters matching up with their Toa. It doesn't really matter as long as the colors match. And even the Mystica, they would just pair them up with random matching colors anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal breaker for them. One thing I will say, of course, the scale of Matoran jumped massively here. The Ab Matoran are massive for Matoran at this point. I do like the in-story reason. This is a good canon set interaction to me. The fact that they're in Kardanui, which is the kind of the heart of the universe where the light powers are the strongest, that the Matoran have increased in size. And that also then explains why Takanuva is a Titan. I do like that little bit of continuity. It is a good hand wave in the canon that I think makes sense, and I can buy it in universe. And I know, that the Av Matoran can change their colors to be whatever they want. And it sort of explains why Takua was a color shifted Av Matoran, why he looked like a Tar Matoran, but I kind of like the idea of the Av Matoran just being gold and white, I guess. These just I just see these guys and I think it's a Ko Matoran, a Lee Matoran, and a Po Matoran. It's just how I see it. But yeah, it is what it is. That's just, yeah. No further commentary there. Another thing, I guess, I sort of wish this system had debuted the following year. Mainly because the fact that the Agori, which is a completely different species, has the exact same build as these guys, doesn't make sense. Again, the fact that Photok and, I don't know, Onapu are the same species, yet Photok looks more like Tarduk than he does someone of his own ilk, makes no sense. these are very biomechanical designs, so already they kind of wouldn't make sense for the Agori, but the fact that they could have pushed it a year and at least it would have been a different system of building. The Matoran limbs, they're okay. They luckily have a lot of connection points. And again, sort of debuting the CCBS direction of building, where it's socket to ball, while everything else in Bionicle was ball to ball, except for the Rakshi thigh, was ball to ball, socket to socket. The Matoran kind of changed that direction to socket to ball, which then CCBS would adopt. So again, it's another thing that feels like it's part of that world and pushing towards that direction. Doesn't apply to the Shadow Matoran, but it was a shame that we got Grey back again. 2006, well, from the Visorak, 2006 and 2007. We were still getting Grey in some sets, such as Karpa, Kongu, Mari, Raydak, but like we had the colors back. They weren't the Mata colors, which I think people tend to be blind to how colorful 2007 and 6 were because they weren't the Mata colors, but they were very colorful years. But here we are back to Grey, and it's just like, ugh, really, Grey again? And you know, to get the Mata feet in Grey when we got them, we technically have them in old Grey from the Master Builder kit, Rahi kit, but then the Vaki giving us all of these feet in Grey, it just feels like a shame. And that's what was great about some of the Agori recolors, and also Photok giving us orange feet. Mata feet recolors. Beautiful. Why couldn't Tanma have given us lime Mata feet? That would have been insane. But yeah. I think that's probably the main bit of background I have on these. I have also some questions, like, you know, Solek is portrayed as being like a Toa Nuva fanboy. Given how, and I don't agree with this piece of canon, how apparently the entire Bionicle story in G1, well, at least the Toa Nuva, from the Toa Nuva landing in Mata Nui to the end, it's like 1 year. Or maybe even less than that. It's like something ridiculous. How does Solek know? How does Solek know about the escapades of the Nuva? How does he know about them? How does that information go? Is there social media in this world? How does that work? It's like a fun, cute thing, but like, how fast does news spread here? I don't know. Honestly, the fact that the Toa Mata were only on Mata Nui for like a few weeks at max or something like that is just ridiculous. To me, they were on that island for a few years at least. Especially between, you know, where they talk about the peacetime after the Borak Karl, and how, you know, the Toa, when the Nuva turn into, when the Mata turn into the Nuva and Tahu serves up to the village and the Tarkoro guard are ready to attack him because they're not used to his new look yet. It's like, within canon, you shouldn't really be that used to his Mata look yet. You barely known him. Completely unrelated to these sets, but, you know, there's lots of timeline things I completely disagree with. Even stuff like, to speak on Matoran, that Takua, who is portrayed as a very youthful character just in the way he is the oldest Matoran. Ridiculous. Completely idiotic. All of these things, even the stuff like Matoran become Borak, is an idiotic, stupid, shock value ass fucking confirmation by Greg later on. Absolutely ridiculous story concept, and doesn't add anything to the story aside from, again, kind of like a gory shock detail. Why? It's really stupid. Anyway, rambling aside, let's get on with the ranking here. What you're going to find is I obviously value kind of a standard Matoran. I don't particularly care about a monstrous Matoran, so you're going to see how these sort of stack up. In last place is going to be Gavla. I believe her name is Gavla. I kind of go back and forth. I know I used to call her Galva, but it's Gavla, and I can't remember if I'm mixing those up. So if I've said her name wrong, is it a her? It's a him. One sec. I'm actually going to check this. Bear with me one moment, because again, it's another one where it's like, it's blue, so I'm going to just assume it's a Garmatoran when it's actually not. Okay, it is Gavla. That's correct. And okay, Gavla is female. It's another one where it's you get the chance to mix up the genders, and it's still the blue one, but whatever. Just checking. I've always assumed it was Gavla was female, but I wasn't sure in this moment. Gavla is an interesting character. I like Gavla's character a lot. I like the idea that she never felt like she fit in with the Matoran, and actually being a Shadow Matoran gave her life and purpose, and she didn't want to go back. That is really fascinating. And almost like Krika, there's this like nuance to this character that if we had more time to breathe, it would have been great to explore. Because that's, again, she's not quite Arcmount levels, but it's like the idea that, wow, being embraced by the Makuta and going through all of this stuff gave her a purpose and made her feel sort of wanted. Really, really great stuff there. Really nice little character nuance, which the other two, Radiac and Kirilp, have basically none of. So, character-wise, Gavla's great. Set-wise, boring. Like, Gavla is basically the same as Kirilp, build-wise, just with a different limb. And I prefer Kirilp. It's basically it. It's cool to get the Karapa claws. That's neat. The little bat wing piece. it's kind of funny because I kind of go back and forth on whether like these wing pieces feel like Bionicle. They are, but there's also, it's just so explicitly a bat's wings that there's no like mechanical details on it. It's strange, but it's a neat little piece. I'm surprised there aren't more like Batmobiles, like like especially back in the day when system sets would use Bionicle pieces, which I used to love that. Love it. I like the fact that Mystica wings to this day are still used in system and Technic sets. I'm surprised more Batman sets didn't use them. Maybe they did. I don't know. But yeah, Gavla just kind of falls to the bottom because to me she's the most boring. Using both the right angle limb is also kind of lame. Like it's sort of the most restricted limb because it's so right angled, and I know Radiac has it as well, but Radiac has a little bit more going for him. And her mask is probably my least favorite of this wave. It reminds me of Moon Werewolf Heirs, if anyone remembers that person. Their character used the Vampire version of this mask. So I will always see it as that. But yeah, she's just my least favorite. After that does go Radiac. Black and red is always a cool color scheme. Radiac's mask is probably feels the most redundant because I know Vampra's and Gavla's masks are pretty similar, like the Avsa, but I feel like there's enough. It almost feels like a puppy and adult dog, and again goes back to that werewolf thing that's tied in my head because that was just a part of my formative years on Bionicle Online. Meanwhile, I think Radiac's mask actually feels a little more redundant. It's supposed to be a noble Jutland. Of course, it's going to look like a Jutland, but it's just really redundant. How many teethy masks do you need? But he is the most unique of this wave, being a quadruped, and I think that gives him some points. And then again, red and black is a bit more of a winning color scheme. I think red and black is more interesting than navy blue or metro blue and black. And yeah. Like, this quadruped look was kind of done again on Tarduk and Zesk. And even those guys are more interesting than Gavla to me. So, yeah. I think that's all I have to say. One thing I will say, though, is that I think this was a problem with the Tarkanuva sword mold. Tarkanuva blade, scythe, whatever mold. And I don't know if other people experienced this, but I felt like its mold, depending on the piece, the axle was like a little thinner, which means it would sometimes fall out on sets. So I don't know if people experience that with Radiac. But yeah, some sets that use that, and through mocks and stuff, that I felt like the axle connection on that was always a little bit looser than some other pieces. And then in fourth place, I'm going to put Kirilp. Kirilp, in fact, I didn't even do my normal shtick of pulling these guys up. Again, there's Gavla, you know, in all her glory. Also, another thing, I guess, and this is a problem I have with Gavla, is the reverse version of this torso really hollows out the chest. Again, she's supposed to be kind of monstrous, but having it in this iteration does mean she looks like she's been scooped out. And yeah. Oh, did I talk on Radiac? Radiac. This picture makes Radiac look more dynamic than I think he does look in person, but yeah, there's just a closer look at Radiac if people haven't seen it. The pictures always made it look like this mask had, and it's just through posing, like it felt like the wings were like part of like the ears or attached to the mask, and I think the mask would probably be more interesting with that, but again, it's just more boring without it. And then Kirilp. I think Kirilp harmoniously looks very cute. There's something just very rounded, including using the Matoran twin cutters, the feet, the face. Kirilp just looks cute to me. And Kirilp, to me, is the best of the Shadow Matoran masks because, of course, it looks like the great version of the Solek, but it's soft and round enough that it doesn't look explicitly evil. You know? I feel like Kirilp can get away. You could use that on a good guy mask, and it wouldn't be so jarring. I do really think that Kirilp, and you know, even having the silver, and I know Gavlol's had silver, but I feel like it's not too much of a stretch to use this on a standard Matoran. I think a standard Matoran could use this mask without it being like, oh, it's evil McGee with freaking teeth everywhere. Now, of course, there are teeth clearly hanging off this mask, but again, they're kind of soft and rounded, and it, you know, you could probably use it for a character. In fact, if anyone watches Onopex and Pals, if anyone remembers Aliki, the episode Aliki, I used it on the character Gyron. Now, by the time I got to making Aliki back in the day, the Sharpie on this mask was all scribbled out. But this is the Matoran of Gravity I had back in the day that uses this mask. And again, it doesn't look like the most noble, good guy ever, which Gyron as a character was. Sorry for people who don't watch my own stuff. They're probably like, well, why is this guy plugging his bullshit? But you know, like, I don't think it's such an explicitly evil mask that you wouldn't be able to use it for good guys or just from a standard Matoran. So I think Kirilp benefits from that, and I think the dark gray and the black and everything, it's not distributed like the other Matoran, so it doesn't feel like so like a rehash in a sense. It doesn't feel like the other guys where they have this uniform color scheme. So I think just this general roundedness and the way the head sits within the shoulders, he feels like a little round ball, and he's just kind of cute. So Kirilp gets it from the shadow side. For me, he just isn't so explicitly evil. He also uses the longer version of these limbs. This limb is crazy. Oh, at the time it was crazy for a Matoran limb. It is so big. And it contributes in a large way to making these guys massive. Like a standard upright Matoran build is basically nearly the same height as a Toa Nuva. Like you're approaching Toa scale with these guys. But however, him using 4 of these makes him look kind of, again, it kind of adds to the roundedness of it, because the other Matoran limb is sharp and right angled, and Solek has his own limb for whatever reason, but we'll get to that. But I don't know, the Kirilp just ends up being round and cute, so he gets to go into 4th place. So as you can see, I much prefer the standard non-light drained Matoran, because the Shadow Matoran to me are just too much of the way they are. Like they're too dedicated and niche. Again, Arkmau is an example of a normal Matoran who's a bad guy, right? He doesn't need to have blood dripping on his face and his evil black shadow covering him. Like, you don't have to look like a little goblin to be evil. And again, they are little goblins because they are evil, because they're mutated and shadow drained and yada yada yada. But I just prefer standard Matoran. I like my Matoran to look like Matoran. Okay, with these guys, I kind of go back and forth with these. I have different thoughts on all of them. So I'm probably just going to speak to their designs before I rank them. So Solek. I know Solek is a meme in the community. I don't actually even... Someone's explained this to me in the comments. I don't know. I don't care. I don't really get the joke. I like Solek. Solek's mask is really cool. Solek's mask is a great example of what some of the Shadow Matoran don't do, where it's like, you can see the through line of why this matches the Akaku Fantoka mask. However, it's completely standalone. We've never really seen a mask with this kind of like wide frame mouth thing, and it really makes it look like its own unique mask. It's really a shame that this didn't get its own power set. I would rather have this have just been a different mask entirely. Tying it down to an Akaku sucks because it doesn't look like any other Akaku. And again, continuity wasn't given them the best go around in G1, with exceptions from the Howl and the Evoki. However, the Akaku, just by being the most famous scoped mask, put a scope on it and it looks like an Akaku. And it's generally sort of rounded, but like this is too much of a departure from it, and I don't like it being an Akaku. But it is a very cool mask. I think it's quite versatile as well. I feel like it's quite gender neutral as well. I can see this as a feminine mask. I can see this as a masculine mask. It's nice. Solek has the only Matoran limb that's unique, and I don't know why it was color locked to white, because then later on in the year Mazika had it as well. Of course, with the Agori and the stars, they made this piece in more colors, but it was very odd that this year he just got his own unique limb. So that was a big selling point for him, I guess. And I do really like this limb because you can see it has a miniaturized Vaki limb inside it for some reason. I know they love the kit bashing, but it's not even like a full-size piece. They literally just micronized it, which is pretty awesome. I like piece continuity. I almost wonder if the bottom half of it is like a micronized version of the weapon Mada limb. It's like a cool mini fusion, and again, it kind of adds to this feeling that these guys are almost like Toa-sized damn Matoran. And I don't know, the composition of it all looks pretty cool. Again, annoying to get more grey, but in a vacuum it looks good for this. Grey and white is a classic ice color scheme. I really do like the jetpack piece that the Matoran have. I far prefer it to the wing piece. It's a really nice piece, and it works great for vehicles, and obviously the Matoran torso, especially the upright version, and the other version is clearly designed around this, because both of those are like caved in. But unlike with the Shadow Matoran, they're very well filled out by the jetpack. It has a lot of volume to it. Add some bulk to them as well. A problem with canister sets from the Ionicle onwards is they started getting very, very thin from the side, but this adds some heft to them. I didn't talk about it on the other sets, and I kind of harped on it in the Stars review. The Matoran head absolutely sucks. It is the worst head they ever designed. It just really, really sucks. It's not as bad on these Matoran as it is on the Stars, mainly because the Matoran masks are designed... They're like big and long. Pause. But, you know, Bionicle masks at this point were getting a bit massive and getting longer from the side. So these are very much designed around that head. Meanwhile, the How and the Evoki were not designed like that, so it's more jarring for the Stars. But yeah, I hate this head. Terrible, terrible, terrible design. Obviously, the prototypes of Solek didn't have him with this mask. I don't recall which one he did have, but again, originally these guys were designed to have recolors. And honestly, in the case of Solek, I actually really like this new mold. It's a very nice mask. Again, just a shame that they had to make it an Akaku. It just robs this of having its own unique power set and makes it less usable if you want to maintain adherence to canon. He uses the Hukimari blades. The Hukimari blades feel like the default generic-ass blade. Goes in there with some of the other roster of always reused blades like the Takanuva staff and the Liwa katana. And yeah, I think that's all I got to say about him. I'll just touch on some other bits. Like, of course, these guys didn't use the new handpiece because all the hands and bone pieces got updated this year to remove the side vents. Which is a shame. The side vents are actually a connection point, if you didn't know. It's not a strong clutch power, but you can actually put studded things into those vents and they stick in. So technically we removed a connection point. Also with this piece, the classic Bionicle hand piece, you can actually put a lightsaber rod all the way through. This piece doesn't allow that. There's like a block inside that stops you from doing it. So you also remove that usability of the piece in that sense. And then, of course, they are more brittle. It's like they panicked because the plastic quality dropped and they were snapping. So then they changed the whole mold, but the new design is more brittle. Like, I still have classic Bionicle hands from 2001 that are intact. It wasn't the design of that piece, it was just the plastic quality. But whatever. But yeah, I think that's all there is to talk about on Solek. Moving on to Tanma. Tanma feels like, of course, he's the poster child of the Photok Matoran. And he, to me, feels, because he has the standard these long legs and these arms, he's kind of like like a Toa. He has like Toa proportions to him. He's super upright. He's got the Mada feet. Again, the limb orientation. You stand him next to a Toa Mada or Nuva, he's basically in that scale. Like, he's kind of gone full circle where the Matoran are Toa. Even using the Liwa katanas, which is great. I think that adds like some nice continuity in a sense. I know Bolter also used these pieces, but I think they work really well for this build and tie him closer to Liwa. He also has a mask that you can see what it has in common with the Miru Phantoka, but it works as its own standalone mask. I've mentioned this in shorts before, but it's funny that there is a lot of overlap with this mask with the Cao Cao Nuva. You know, with the nostril vents, the forehead ridges, and the cheek vents. There's a lot in common with the Cao Cao Nuva. I genuinely think if this was in dark blue and on Gali. Now, I don't like Gali with the Cao Cao Nuva, quite frankly. But this is closer to that mask than her Mystica form. So, yeah, just kind of an interesting thought. But again, I think it's hindered by making this a Miru. It has no ties to any actual Miru that another character could wear. So it just kind of locks this piece to being kind of unusable, in a sense. When we could have got a new power and a new mask that we could have used on a bunch of characters if you want to stick to canon adherence and as well as aesthetics. Because again, of course you can just use it as a noble Miru, but it doesn't look like a Miru. Why? Yeah, the lime works. Lime and grey is actually quite a nice color scheme. Feels like it wouldn't work, but Liwa Phantoka also looks great with this color scheme. And I think the color balancing works really well here. Again, I don't think it would look better, but I kind of low-key wish he was like Photok and had lime green Marder feet. How cool would that be? That would be awesome. And I would sacrifice losing... I would sacrifice Tanma looking worse to have lime green Marder feet, quite frankly. So, yeah, Tanma, you should have taken one for the team and just been a worse set. But yeah. Okay, I think that's it with Tanma. And then we go on to Photok. Photok. I love you. Mainly because of those feet. He is the one to get this wave because you get orange Marder feet. That is literally it. Like, I think build-wise he's very interesting. Like, going back to how I just see them as their default elements. This is the most, like, Matoran-coded set ever. Just from the build, being kind of the hunch, having the Kakama, he has orange. Like, it's like, this is like the modern interpretation of Huki. With, like, using the orange. Obviously not dark orange, but orange still. It's funny because, you know, there isn't too much difference. It's just brown is dark orange. So orange isn't the worst stone color. And again, he's not a stone character, but, you know, everything about him from the heavier arms, the squat build, the Kakama. This is the most Matoran coded dude, like, ever. Matoran or Matoran coded guy ever. And I think, kind of almost... Like, unlike what I think Tanma would look weird, I like the arms here. It almost gives him, like, a sleeveless look. Like, he's sleeveless and he's wearing gloves. He feels like a strong worker guy. And I think even giving him the stubbier Chronicler staff weapons sort of adds to this look. He looks quite rugged. So he's the most honorary Matoran ever. And, again, he has a great mask design that is sort of the filled-out version of the Kakama Phantoka. And it just looks like a Kakama. Like, it's almost like Greg looked at this one, confirmed it, and then confirmed everything. When it's like, dude, just pick and choose. Confirm this one as a noble Kakama and give the other ones different powers. This one I can live with. To me, this feels like in the same way that Lee Khan has a Hao that's manufactured in a different region, so it looks different, but it is a Hao. That's how this feels like. This feels like this could be the Metru Hao, or, you know, the Hows that... Sorry, not the How. The Kakamas they manufacture on the southern continent. Has great piece continuity there, while... Like, it has no specific direct lifted elements with the original Kakama, but the final composition of this mask is very Kakama. So, I like him for that reason. Unlike the other two Shadow Matoran, his torso is built the other way round, which gives him sort of like a barrel-chested look, and then instead of having his back scooped out, like he's arching his back, he's got the jetpack to fill it out. So he ends up looking pretty great altogether. Again, he is the best piece of this wave with those feet recolors. But yeah, that's what I got to say about him. So, where did these guys land? I like Solek a lot, but I think I'm going to put him in number 3. He is the most unique technically of this wave, having his own limb. And then Mazika being just a copy of him was lazy as hell. But, you know, if you're going to actually get one and you want kind of the most unique set, Solek is the one to get. He has a mask that's really, truly unlike anything else in Bionicle as well. Again, Photok has sort of a calmer look to it. There are 2 masks in common with Tanma's, and while Solek's has clearly got shared elements with his Toa's mask, it's enough to stand out as its own unique thing. Then it kind of comes down to these 2. I think my Matoran bias is bleeding through, and those Marta feet are really making me want to push Photok to number 1. But Tanma is also a really solid set. Again, Tanma is almost like getting a mini Toa. He's just so upright. He's just got the standard heroic proportions. His swords look really good. He's a really handsome set. I don't know which my favorite is. I think it's definitely very close between these 2. But actually, no. I'm going to put Tanma in number 2. I just can't I can't really give a pass to how amazing those freaking feet are. Orange Marta feet. And I know I don't like to give set design props on color, on recolors, because, you know, if you look at the set in the vacuum, because so many people defend bad sets saying, oh, but all the recolors, oh, it's a great parts pack. A great parts pack does not make a good set. It just doesn't. Like, it makes it a good purchase, but not a good set. However, Photok, A, has those feet, which, again, it's so much bleeding bias here. But also, I actually do like the fact that he has a unique color scheme. He technically shares his color layering with Kirilp, but with the dark gray and the black, it's less distinct. I feel like Photok has almost like this working, almost like blue collar look to him. He almost looks like he's wearing gray sleeveless overalls. If you look at his color layering, yeah, it's like he's in overalls with the sleeveless. Sleeveless overalls don't have sleeves. You know, he's in overalls and he's got like orange skin. And I think that gives him such a unique look compared to these guys. And then the Kakama mask is so strong, and it's one where a lame canonization really works in this case. So I think I'm happy putting that there. And mind you, again, if Tanma is so close, Tanma could be my number 1 also. Solek is also a great contender. Like, those 3 are really cool. I like the way these guys look. Again, I don't like what they did in terms of what they established. This non-technic, simple-ass system. But again, looking at these guys, and if this was on my shelf, of course I would take a custom-built Matoran of any of the other types over these guys, with a recolored Kanohi any day. But this is what we were given. And mind you, in 2008, I was jonesing for new pieces. These guys give us new pieces in droves, for better or for worse. But yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it for now. I think I'm happy with this order. Let me know who you want to rank next. Check out Takeover. And yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to make some mock videos soon. I don't know. And then, of course, I know some people dreamt up some interest on Reign of Shadows after my Vaki video, so maybe you'll see that soon. But yeah, for now, that's it. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.